Señoras y señores, buenos días. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs. Señoras y señores, bon dia. Soy Lucía López y seré su maestra de ceremonia a lo largo de este 7º Congreso de las Américas sobre Educación Internacional KEI Chile 2021. I am Lucía López and I will be your master of ceremony throughout the 7th Conference of Americas on International Education, CAIE Chile 2021. Para su comodidad, me complace indicarles que se estará ofreciendo servicio de interpretación simultánea durante esta ceremonia de inauguración, la conferencia magistral, las sesiones plenarias y los paneles de expertos que se han preparado para ustedes. Les invito a asegurarse de que hayan seleccionado el canal de idioma de su preferencia. For your convenience, I'm pleased to inform you that simultaneous interpretation is available during this inauguration ceremony, as well as the upcoming keynote address, plenary sessions, and expert panels that have been prepared for you. Please ensure that you have selected the right channel for your preferred language. I shall now continue in Spanish. Permítame ahora presentar a los invitados de honor. Señor Juan Eduardo Vargas, subsecretario de Educación Superior de Chile. Su Excelencia Michael Ward, embajador de Canadá en Chile. Dr. Oscar Garrido, rector de la Universidad de los Lagos, presidente de la Organización Universitaria Interamericana OUI y representante del Comité Nacional del KEI 2021. Dr. David Julian, secretario general ejecutivo de la Organización Universitaria Interamericana OUI y secretario ejecutivo del KEI. Señoras y señores, su presidium, ladies and gentlemen, your table of honor. Antes de continuar, queremos saludar y agradecer a la institución que hoy nos recibe, la Universidad de Chile, y al rector, el doctor Ennio Vivaldi. Qué lugar más emblemático que este Salón de Honor para dar inicio a esta gran celebración de educación superior en el territorio chileno. Gracias, doctor Vivaldi, así como a todo su equipo. De manera muy especial, queremos reconocer el apoyo de las asociaciones coanfitrionas de este Congreso, quienes, gracias a su apoyo, han hecho posible este evento. Consejo de Rectores de las Universidades Chilenas, CRUCH, Consorcio de Universidades del Estado de Chile, CUECH, Agrupación de Universidades Regionales, AUR, Corporación de Universidades Privadas, CUP, Red G9, Universidades Públicas No Estatales, Vertebral, ISTP CRUCH, CF TECH. Before continuing, I would also like to thank our Diamond and Platinum partners, without which this event could not take place. The Government of Chile via the Ministry of Education and the Subsecretaría de Educación Superior. The Government of Canada and its International Education Division, Edu-Canada. Le Gouvernement du Québec, la Ville de Montréal, the Forum on Education Abroad, Think New, New Zealand Education, Calario, Canada and Latin American Research and Exchange Opportunities, les Fonds de Recherche du Québec, le Conseil supérieur de l'éducation du Québec, APAID 2022, Asia Pacific Association for International Education. During this ceremony, we'll have the opportunity to listen from our guests, starting with Dr. David Julian, Executive Director of our conference, who will be followed in order by His Excellency Michael Ward, Ambassador of Canada to Chile, Dr. Oscar Garrido in representation of the institution and association that conform the National Committee, and on behalf of Chile, our host country, the Deputy Secretary for Higher Education, Juan Eduardo Vargas. I would now like to invite Dr. David Julian, who explained how CAIE Chile 2021 came to be and provide some context on the development of our conference.
Distinguidos miembros del Presidium, invitados, invitadas, colegas, pero sobre todo amigas y amigos, sean todos saludados por sus títulos y funciones. Es para mí un gran honor darles la bienvenida al Congreso de las Américas sobre Educación Internacional CAIE y especialmente a Chile, nuestro país anfitrión, que hoy está representado desde Iquique al norte hasta Punta Arenas en el sur patagónico, pasando desde luego por Santiago, donde hoy estamos congregados gracias a la magia de la virtualidad para trazar el futuro de la educación superior en las Américas. En primer lugar, quiero agradecer el liderazgo del subsecretario Vargas, que hace 3 años, cuando nos reunimos por primera vez, tuvo la audacia y la visión de posicionar a su país como sede de este gran evento, convencido del potencial del sector de educación superior de Chile y decidido a apoyar la realización de esta 7ª edición del CAI. Obviamente, nuestra visión en esta época era distinta, con la intención de recibirlos con los brazos abiertos y ojalá un brindis de vino chileno. Pero desde las primeras discusiones que tuvimos, ya en contexto de pandemia, todos estuvieron convencidos de que teníamos una oportunidad única para demostrar que no solo Chile, pero toda la región de América Latina y el Caribe podía recibir al mundo en un evento virtual innovador, relevante y de cierta forma transformador. Y gracias al compromiso del gobierno chileno, fue posible garantizar la plena movilización de las redes nacionales del sector universitario y del sector técnico profesional para que cada uno de los participantes hoy registrado en este evento pueda encontrar el socio idóneo para desarrollar sus propias estrategias de internacionalización de la educación superior. Today, 11 years after the first CAE, when I see our 40 associate members and so many delegates connected to our platform, I can proudly report to the Canadian government that has generously supported the CAI Secretariat from the very beginning, mission accomplished. Now, CAI Chile 2021 going virtual, that was definitely a game changer. Not only have we maintained a very strong representation from almost every country in the Americas, consolidating our one-stop shop model, but we are also very happy to welcome to this conference new delegations like study in Czech Republic, study in Japan, study in Switzerland, or study in Saskatchewan that have joined old friends and longtime partners like Edu Canada, Education USA, Think New Zealand, Study in Germany, Study in Quebec, or even Go Colombia, our previous host. With all of our partners gathered here, we can bridge continents and consolidate this unique opportunity to meet and develop the necessary partnerships that colleges and universities can rely on to create global opportunities for global citizens. Because yes, students are much more than clients to our institutions. They are sources of talent, they are entrepreneurs, they are engaged citizens, and they care about our planet. And so it is our duty to provide them with the tools to open the doors to new and exciting opportunities for research and innovation with a future-ready education and work-integrated learning. This, my friends, should be our mindset for the week. Je tiens également à souligner la présence de plusieurs de mes compatriotes et du gouvernement du Québec, fiers partenaires depuis le CAI de Montréal en 2017. Vous entendrez cette semaine la ministre de l'Enseignement supérieur, qui démontrera que ce type d'événement n'est pas seulement un prétexte de rencontre sans lendemain, mais bien une opportunité concrète de consolider des alliances stratégiques durables avec des partenaires de choix. Et si on pense à la thématique du CAI 2021, tracer le futur, renforcer la communauté globale du savoir, nous avons mis sur pied un riche programme qui donnera, je l'espère, un apport intéressant à vos efforts d'internationalisation dans une perspective de développement durable. Car ce sont bien les valeurs d'équité et d'accessibilité qui guident notre initiative depuis ses débuts, et le fait d'être contraint à rester à la maison ou rester au bureau nous force à repenser nos modèles de coopération et à être créatifs pour innover et demeurer pertinents. Isso mesmo, repensar a maneira como fazemos as coisas. Se a pandemia mostrou apenas uma coisa, é que, embora muitos pensassem que as universidades eram imutáveis os líderes do ensino superior como vocês mostrarão que é possível mudar as coisas para melhor. En conclusión, quiero agradecer a todos aquellos que, a pesar del Zoom fatigue, han dado respuesta a nuestra invitación y presentarán sus experiencias en las diferentes sesiones. Aguardo con gusto la oportunidad de escuchar sus intervenciones en el transcurso de la semana. También expreso mi agradecimiento a todos aquellos que contribuyeron a la preparación y organización de este evento. Al Comité Nacional y sus comités técnicos, a mi presidente, Oscar Garrido, por su liderazgo y tremenda dedicación, y sobre todo a mi equipo en la Secretaría de la OUI. Muchas gracias a todas y a todos por su presencia hoy y su conciencia. And may we all have a memorable CAI Chile 2021.
As CAI is main partner since its first edition in 2010, Global Affairs Canada and EduCanada support our efforts to ensure that the internationalization processes of higher education institutions continue to grow in the Americas. I invite Michael Gord, Ambassador of Canada to Chile, to share his welcoming words.
Es un orgullo para mí darles la bienvenida al 7º Congreso de las Américas sobre Educación Internacional, CAI. CAI ha cumplido un rol clave en las relaciones de cooperación académica y la internacionalización de la educación superior durante sus años de existencia. Para mí también es un gran gusto darles este mensaje desde el Salón de Honor de la Universidad de Chile, lugar tan emblemático, parte de una de las universidades más prestigiosas de Chile. Las instituciones de educación superior son actores clave para enfrentar los numerosos desafíos de nuestra sociedad. En un mundo cada vez más conectado y competitivo, Canadá busca continuamente establecer estrechos vínculos con destacadas instituciones educativas internacionales, que son la base de gran talento y de conocimiento fundamental para el avance de nuestro mundo actual. Es por esto que reconocemos la educación internacional como una prioridad de nuestro país. Nos hubiese encantado el haber realizado este congreso de forma presencial para recibirlos en este gran país donde represento orgullosamente a Canadá. Sin embargo, estoy contento que las plataformas virtuales actuales nos permiten acercarnos a pesar de la distancia y los desafíos que hemos enfrentado por la pandemia. C'est un grand plaisir de soutenir à nouveau le Congrès des Amériques sur l'éducation internationale par l'entremise de notre marque EduCanada et la formidable délégation canadienne qui l'accompagne. Celle-ci comprend des établissements d'enseignement supérieur prestigieux, ainsi que des gouvernements provinciaux et des associations éducatives de premier plan. Nous avons constaté avec grande admiration comment ce congrès, depuis sa création en 2010, a facilité la collaboration entre les institutions en abordant des questions pertinentes pour le secteur de l'éducation internationale. Nous avons été les témoins privilégiés de sa consolidation dans le temps. This year, the theme of the conference is Chart the Future, Strengthening the Global Knowledge Community. I think this virtual opportunity where key actors of the international education community gather is the perfect scenario to share trends, best practices, and strategic opportunities, but also to compare challenges so that together we can strengthen the endless possibilities for the international education sector. Esperamos que esta instancia de vinculación en educación internacional con sede en Chile continúe consolidando la presencia de CAI. La participación de delegaciones de distintas partes del mundo ofrece nuevas oportunidades de desarrollo y colaboración estratégica para las instituciones de educación superior canadienses y sus socios de las Américas, además de fortalecer los lazos existentes a través de eventos como este. Es por esto que no puedo dejar de invitarles también a participar en la conferencia de Asia Pacific Association for International Education, APAIE, que tendrá lugar de forma presencial en Vancouver, Canadá, del 26 al 31 de marzo de 2022, luego de su suspensión en 2020 a raíz de la pandemia. Confiamos que las nuevas relaciones, alianzas y oportunidades que se forjen en este congreso sean una contribución para la prosperidad de nuestros pueblos. Mucho éxito y muchas gracias.
Esta séptima edición del Congreso de las Américas sobre Educación Internacional es el resultado de una estrecha colaboración entre todas las instituciones de educación superior de Chile, tanto del sector universitario como del sector técnico profesional. Hablando a su nombre, el rector Óscar Garrido compartirá un mensaje de amistad que sin duda será evidente durante todo el Congreso.
Señor Eduardo Vargas, subsecretario de Educación Superior del Gobierno de Chile. Señor David Julián, secretario ejecutivo del Congreso de las Américas en Educación Internacional y de la Organización Universitaria Interamericana, UI. Señor Michael Gort, embajador de Canadá en Chile. Un saludo especial a los organismos multilaterales, a los rectores y rectoras de universidades, a los directivos universitarios y expertos en educación superior que hoy participan desde distintos continentes y países y que hoy se dan cita en el Congreso de las Américas en Educación Internacional, organizado por las redes académicas del Consejo de Rectores de Universidades Chilenas, Consorcio de Universidades Estatales, Agrupación de Universidades Regionales, Red G9 de las Universidades Privadas Tradicionales, Corporación de Universidades Privadas, Red de Centros de Formación Técnica del Estado de Chile, y de Vertebral, que reúne hoy día a institutos profesionales y centros de formación técnica privados, y una mención especial al Ministerio de Educación de Chile y al Gobierno de Canadá por todos los apoyos dados a este Congreso. Han pasado 2 años desde nuestro último encuentro físico en el Congreso de la América en Bogotá. En el intertanto, el mundo cambió radicalmente y las instituciones de educación superior debimos adaptarnos. La disrupción que la humanidad sufrió a inicio del 2020 nos tomó por sorpresa, obligó a la población a un confinamiento por largos periodos e indiscutiblemente modificó nuestra forma de relacionarnos. La vía tradicional de dictación de clases pasó de un modelo casi en su totalidad presencial a uno estrictamente virtual para todos los niveles formativos, significando un enorme desafío para todas las instituciones. La investigación también se vio sujeta a transformaciones profundas. Afortunadamente, las innovaciones tecnológicas, muchas de las cuales han surgido en las propias universidades, han permitido que nos adaptemos y continuemos desarrollando nuestra misión. Y estoy convencido que nos seguimos adaptando frente a los desafíos que nos imponga el futuro. Que nuestro encuentro hoy sea totalmente virtual es prueba de ello. Pero si algo hemos aprendido de la pandemia es que la cooperación sigue siendo el vehículo para alcanzar nuestras metas compartidas. A fines del 2021 seguiremos enfrentando múltiples retos comunes que no son solo aquellos que nos ha impuesto la emergencia sanitaria. En la región persisten profundas asimetrías. Tenemos polos de desarrollo avanzado y territorios donde aún la conexión a Internet y las herramientas tecnológicas a disposición de la población son escasas. Pero son muchos más los retos que tenemos por delante. El cambio climático, la escasez de agua, la demanda energética, el incremento de la intensidad de desastres naturales, la insatisfacción de la población y el aumento de demandas sociales, la mutación de virus y otras amenazas a la salud, la reducción de puestos laborales por la automatización de la mano de obra, la profundización de problemas derivados de migraciones masivas y la radicalización de algunas posturas políticas externas. Los grandes desafíos que tiene pendiente nuestro continente son lograr mayor cohesión y equidad social, reducir los índices de pobreza, incrementar el desarrollo sostenible, profundizar la democracia, descentralizar los territorios, solo serán posibles de lograr si elevamos los niveles educativos. Sabemos que la educación, y en particular la educación superior, es el motor de desarrollo regional y de movilidad social por excelencia. Sin embargo, con tristeza vemos que en educación se reproducen las mismas inequidades económicas y sociales que imposibilitan a nuestros países avanzar. Esta condición nos impone agendas urgentes y la necesidad de seguir empleando y perfeccionando medios para su consecución, como la cooperación, la solidaridad y el apoyo mutuo. Estos son los ejes fundamentales que forman parte de nuestro proyecto como organización universitaria interamericana y que el propio Congreso de las Américas, en sus versiones, los hace suyos. Son estos los valores que nos dan sustento y a la vez nos proyectan con optimismo a pesar de las amenazas compartidas. Como organización, seguiremos buscando esas soluciones. No olvidemos aquel antiguo proverbio africano que dice: si quieres llegar rápido, ve solo; si quieres llegar lejos, ve acompañado. Hemos decidido enfrentar el futuro juntos y continuaremos avanzando para lograr el sueño de nuestro presidente fundador de la UI, Gil Boulet, lograr mantener una cadena universitaria interamericana en un esfuerzo común de mejora y de fortalecimiento de cada uno de sus eslabones. Y yo añadiría, una cadena en donde cada una de nuestras instituciones, ya sea grande o pequeña, cuenta, y donde cada institución aporta sus mejores capacidades para reducir las asimetrías, promover el desarrollo humano, científico y tecnológico y lograr un sentido compartido de equidad. A más de 40 años de formada la UI, la solidaridad, la cooperación y la fraternidad siguen siendo los fundamentos que nos permiten perseverar en la búsqueda del bien común. En esta nueva versión del Congreso de las Américas, la invitación está abierta para que continuemos extendiendo los lazos de colaboración, concebido como instancia de reflexión académica. Este Congreso permite, sin duda, recoger aportes actuales de la investigación a la educación internacional, a fin de abundar en la discusión pública sobre los desafíos, orientaciones y tareas pendientes. Es importante reconocer que con el paso del tiempo, este se ha ido transformando en el foro continental de internacionalización por excelencia, al reunir a los principales actores y tomadores de decisión vinculados de la región. Quiero extender mi agradecimiento a las redes académicas, organizadoras del evento, al Ministerio de Educación de Chile, al Gobierno de Canadá y al equipo de la Secretaría General por la ardua labor en la organización de este Congreso, y esperamos que los resultados de cada conferencia, de cada panel y sesión paralela puedan ser difundidas para profundizar en la reflexión y las buenas prácticas institucionales. Les deseo el mayor de los éxitos. Mantengamos todos y todas viva la llama de la interamericanidad y el sueño de una sociedad cada día más justa. Muchas gracias.
Sin duda, un evento de tal magnitud no sería posible sin el apoyo del gobierno y las autoridades del país anfitrión. Desde hace más de 3 años se han movilizado representantes de la Subsecretaría de Educación Superior y de las Divisiones de Educación Universitaria y de Educación Técnico-Profesional. A nombre de todas y todos los actores del sector público nacional y local, tengo el privilegio ahora de ceder la palabra al señor Subsecretario de Educación Superior, Juan Eduardo Vargas.
Quiero darles la más cordial bienvenida a Chile. Con enorme satisfacción estamos dando inicio al Congreso de las Américas sobre Educación Internacional, que este año se desarrolla en nuestro país. Esta es una instancia propicia para que, en un contexto de comunidad global, podamos compartir experiencias que nos permitan pensar y desarrollar de mejor manera nuestros sistemas de educación superior. Estamos seguros de que este Congreso permitirá compartir y recabar buenas prácticas y experiencias de diversos lugares del mundo para incorporar en nuestras propias realidades. Por nuestra parte, además, consideramos que es una excelente oportunidad para dar a conocer la evolución y el funcionamiento de nuestro sistema de educación superior y los desafíos que nos toca enfrentar en los próximos años. Permítanme contarles que nuestro sistema ha evolucionado de buena manera en los últimos años. Contamos con una nueva institucionalidad que incluye la creación de una subsecretaría de Educación Superior, de una superintendencia de Educación Superior y de un comité en donde las entidades públicas a cargo de la educación superior nos reunimos periódicamente. No solo eso, la acreditación de las instituciones ya es obligatoria y aquellas que no lo están todavía se encuentran trabajando arduamente para obtenerla. Tenemos un sistema que considera, por una parte, a las universidades y, por otro, a instituciones técnico-profesionales orientadas a la formación vocacional. Estas se han desarrollado con fuerza en el último tiempo, ofreciendo carreras cortas o relativamente cortas que gozan, en general, de una buena empleabilidad y remuneraciones. Hoy por hoy, de hecho, el 57% de quienes entran a la educación superior en nuestro país lo hacen eligiendo alguna de estas instituciones. Por otra parte, algunas de las universidades de nuestro país tienen una muy buena figuración en los rankings internacionales. Contamos, en efecto, con varias universidades dentro de las mejores de Latinoamérica, lo cual es mayormente meritorio considerando nuestro pequeño tamaño como país. El derecho a la educación superior, por otra parte, no solo está plasmado en la ley, sino que se hace realidad mediante una política pública de apoyo financiero a los estudiantes, a través de ayudas como gratuidad, becas y créditos, lo que en definitiva permite entregar posibilidades de acceso a todos nuestros jóvenes. Para que se hagan una idea, en Chile actualmente 2 de cada 3 personas financian, ya sea parcial o totalmente, sus estudios de pregrado gracias a alguna ayuda estatal. De esta forma, la masificación de la educación superior es una realidad presente en Chile desde hace varios años, al punto que actualmente somos uno de los países de la OCDE que cuenta con mayores niveles de cobertura. Con respecto a la internacionalización, las universidades en Chile han hecho un esfuerzo importante por atraer alumnos extranjeros, contando actualmente con más de 25.000 estudiantes extranjeros de pre- y posgrado. No solamente se manifiesta en ello el esfuerzo de internacionalización, la investigación se ha incrementado de manera significativa en los últimos años, en especial la producción científica que se desarrolla con colaboración internacional. Todo lo anterior, en suma, da cuenta de un sistema de educación superior vigoroso y dinámico, que se abre con fuerza al mundo para estrechar y crear nuevos lazos que propicien el desarrollo de una verdadera comunidad académica internacional. Para terminar, vuelvo a darles una cariñosa bienvenida a Chile y a este Congreso, que sin lugar a dudas hubiese preferido hacer de forma presencial. Al menos en tiempos en los que todavía debemos convivir con la pandemia, la tecnología nos da la posibilidad de hacerla por estos medios. Espero que estos días sean extremadamente provechosos para todos nosotros. Muchas gracias.
Ladies and gentlemen, with this, we conclude the opening ceremony of the 7th Conference of the Americas on International Education, CAEI Chile 2021. I invite you all to stay in the same virtual session, for we will immediately follow with this year's keynote address. I therefore invite Dr. David Julian to welcome our keynote speaker, Professor Jeffrey Sachs.
All right, folks, we're on. So welcome to our Kai studio, aka my office, for this 7th edition of Kai. I'm very happy to report that more than 1,000 delegates from 40 countries have completed their registration to Kai, and we're very excited about this, especially considering that most of the large higher education conferences have actually seen a decrease of their participation for virtual events. So we closed shop 2 years ago in Bogota, just below the 1,000 bar. So we're very excited about this new record. And I'm being told that more people are still logging in as we speak. I guess this really shows the commitment and dynamism of an emerging region in terms of internationalization of higher education. And we hope that this week will be full of great opportunities to extend both your knowledge and your partnerships throughout the region. I will now invite the tech producers to put Jeffrey Sachs on screen. I'm being told that he's logging in as we speak. Professor Sachs, good day.
How are you?
I'm very good, thank you, sir. It is now my immense pleasure and privilege to welcome Professor Jeffrey Sachs. For those who are not yet familiar with our distinguished guest, let me read a very short summary of his remarkable career. Dr. Sachs is a university professor and director of the Center for Sustainable Development at Columbia University in New York, where he directed the Earth Institutes from 2002 until 2016. He is also president of the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network and a commissioner for the UN Broadband Commission for Development. He has been advisor to 3 United Nations Secretaries General and currently serves as an SDG advocate under Secretary General Antonio Guterres. He spent over 20 years as a professor at Harvard University, where he received his BA, MA, and PhD degrees, and has received over 35 honorary doctorates around the world since then. He has authored numerous bestseller books. His more recent book is The Ages of Globalization, Geography, Technology, and Institutions in 2020. And Professor Sachs was twice named as one of the Times Magazine 100 most influential world leaders and was ranked by The Economist among the top 3 most influential living economists. So Dr. Sachs, let me first thank you for accepting our invitation. We know your agenda is way beyond busy. 2 years ago, we almost convinced you to come to CAI 2019 in Bogota with the help of your colleague and friend, Jose Antonio Ocampo, but timing was just not right. I guess now with virtual events, we can actually have you connected without any footprint on the environment, which is a good news. So welcome to CAI 2021. Welcome to a large community of university presidents and senior leaders, academics, and passionate people, all willing to do more to respond to the SDG agenda. Many have said that we need to shake the ivory tower. So we are very much looking forward to your thought-provoking remarks. The floor is yours, sirs.
David, thank you. And colleagues from around CAI, from around the Americas, thank you for having me. And greetings this evening from Tirana, Albania. So indeed, Zoom is a wonderful thing in its way. It's nice to see people in person as well, but it is good that we can so easily get together virtually and share ideas and communicate. And I hope that this is the start of a wonderful relationship. Let me mention right at the outset that I'm very lucky to direct the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network, SDSN. I hope that many of the universities participating in CAI are already members of SDSN. But if not, please do join SDSN. And if you just drop me a quick email at sachs@columbia.edu, I will forward it to our team to help you understand what is SDSN and how to make an application to be a member of the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network. It's a global network of universities that aims to support universities to play the role that I believe universities can and need to play to help the world achieve sustainable development. So SDSN is here for you, and I really would like you to participate. I think it can help strengthen the sustainable development offerings of your universities. And the more you do, the better off all of us are in really changing the direction of our planet, because we need to move in a different way. And I think universities have a unique role to play. It's fair to say governments are not where the knowledge is, not where the technical knowledge is, not where the will to change, in fact, often is. But universities have two remarkable attributes. One is that they aggregate knowledge from across disciplines, and the kinds of challenges that we face today are intrinsically cross-disciplinary. And second, what we all love about universities is that they have young people that refresh the universities, refresh their senior advisors and professors, and that are, of course, not only in cliched terms, but in reality, the upcoming leaders of society. And it's our job to help empower them with the tools that they'll need for responsible, ethical, and technically sound leadership in the 21st century. I wanted to speak about two issues that I think are really paramount for us. One I've already started on, and that is the Sustainable Development Agenda, what it means, how we can get better organized, what is our role. And the second is the issue of access to higher education in general, especially the question of access in the age of digital technologies, because we now can do absolutely new, wonderful things with access and with global partnerships and with innovative programs that simply wasn't imaginable just a few years ago. Well, on the Sustainable Development Agenda, I think everybody on the call is likely aware of two critical globally agreed objectives. One is the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which all of the 193 UN member states adopted in September 2015 as the framework of global cooperation to the year 2030. These SDGs followed the MDGs, which were the globally agreed goals between 2000 and 2015. And I will predict that as of 2030, there will be a new set of goals as well that will carry us forward perhaps another 15 years, 2031 to 2045. The reason I say this is that there's really great value in having globally agreed goals. Not that they are therefore automatically achieved, although they ought to be, but they give us a common language and a common sense of purpose and a common direction on the planet, which we so much need. There's enough noise in our daily lives, enough friction, enough divisions in our society, enough geopolitical political tensions, that it's really nice to have something that the world has agreed to as important, worthy, time-bound for all of humanity. In addition to the SDGs is the second major goal, and that is the Paris Climate Agreement. And this, of course, is also profoundly relevant for all parts of the Americas, but all parts of the world. The prevailing framework for climate change is the agreement that was reached in December 2015, a few weeks after the SDGs, when the same 193 UN member states signed the Paris Agreement, which is an implementing agreement of the 1992 UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. So the SDGs are goals to the year 2030, and the Paris Climate Agreement are globally agreed goals to the year 2050. And one could add that in addition to the climate agenda of the Paris Agreement, we have other environmental agreements that are of a similar kind, especially the Convention on Biological Diversity, or CBD, which is a kind of partner with the Paris Agreement, or with the UNFCCC, which calls on all countries to protect ecosystems and protect biodiversity. And as I'm sure everybody is aware, not only do we have an upcoming meeting in just a couple of weeks in Glasgow, Scotland, COP26, but actually there was launched this week, and now for continuance next year, COP15 of the Convention on Biological Diversity under the host country, China, which will aim to put in place medium-term and long-term goals for protection of ecosystems. And heaven knows in the Americas, we have a lot of threatened ecosystems, whether it's the Amazon or the small island states of the Caribbean, or Central America beset by massive drought, and so on. So these two agendas are profoundly important. I think for us as members and leaders of universities, it's really important for us to reflect, what do they mean for us, for the university sector? And there, I think the answer is three things. First, of course, universities, by bringing together expertise in earth sciences, in engineering, in policy sciences, in law, in economics, in finance, in behavioral sciences, aggregate the set of tools that are crucial for success of the SDGs and the Paris Agreement. And I don't know of other institutions in society, they don't really exist, that can aggregate that amount of expertise. So I think universities really need to say, yeah, we're going to work on these two issues centrally in our research, because who else is going to do it? And to have governments understand that universities are partners. They can be a threat because universities tend to tell the truth. Governments, not so often. But governments also need technical help. How to do the things that they're supposed to do. Most governments don't know. And so I see universities first as having a research agenda. Second, of course, they have a massive convening agenda of bringing together academic expertise, the business community, civil society, and scientific knowledge. So government, academia, business, civil society, universities are good at bringing together these different stakeholders to help forge agreed pathways forward. And third, maybe most fundamental of all, we need to train students in these areas. And that, in my view, requires new kinds of educational programs. When I was a director of the Earth Institute at Columbia, we introduced a new PhD in sustainable development as an integrated, holistic study of Earth systems, engineering, and policy systems. We introduced, I think at the time, 8 new master's degree programs in sustainable development. We introduced a new major for undergraduates in Columbia College in sustainable development. Because my view is sustainable development is a discipline. It's an intellectual discipline, not only a set of goals, but a way of thinking that puts together physical, engineered, political, and economic and social systems in a system of systems orientation, with the idea of helping to shift the trajectory of our socio-political economic systems towards sustainable development. So this is, for me, pretty much a central proposition. We ought to be leading. And the whole idea of the SDSN is to support universities for these three major roles: the research role, the convening role, and the educational, pedagogical role. We have several different documents of SDSN, how to get started with the SDGs. We have a very active networking system of SDSN, which all of you are absolutely welcome. I'd almost say required, but I won't say that, but welcome to join and to help support. And we are aiming for a call with university presidents and UN leaders sometime in early 2022 around these themes. Let me turn to the second major theme that I wanted to introduce briefly, and that is, what can we do with this wonderful new online pedagogy to reach more students? Because higher education has been necessarily limited. Of course, not every young person is going to want to have a tertiary education or will be able to, but I think a larger proportion can and should in our knowledge-based economy and society. But cost has been a big hindrance. Limitations of capacity of universities, budgets and so forth have been obstacles. And I'm very keen on thinking through how the new digital technologies enable us to do more. I'll be launching with some African universities a kind of online Africa-wide master's degree in sustainable development in the coming year. And the idea there is, with some blending of brick and mortar campuses, to launch a master's degree at quite low cost, something on the order of maybe $2,000 tuition in the year, or maybe up to $3,000, but not the very, very high costs that one would find in a US university or many other universities. And this is possible because of digital technologies and the great economies of scale that the digital technologies enable. I also think that with the digital technologies, we can do a lot more creative things. In our knowledge-based society, we ought to have systematic adult education. We ought to have continuing education for our students, even certification on a continuing basis. My wife is a medical doctor, and she takes continuing medical education credits because you're supposed to continue to upgrade, to make sure that you're at the cutting edge of knowledge, and clinical practitioners need to continue to have systematic education. But I think that's true of society more generally. So I would like the universities to think also not only about their own students, but about public education, public awareness, more outward-facing events, more short courses, more certification, more opportunities with webinars, with public participation. I think that there is a world of interesting developments ahead. Of course, the other thing which I think everybody online will know and feel and will be engaged in is we can partner much more effectively now. Joint degrees, classrooms that are globally interconnected, something I've been doing in my courses for a dozen years now, where I start teaching at 8 a.m. in Eastern time in the United States, 8 p.m. in Beijing, and almost all time zones in between for Europe, Africa, and most of Asia. And that way you can have students from all over the world joining in a common classroom. I find that very attractive. I think if students work together across the world and we find interesting ways to do that, that's going to enrich the education as well. In general, we're an interconnected global society that doesn't know much about each other. And I would like us to use education to help our students understand that they are part of a globally interconnected world. And I think creative pedagogy can help to bring that insight to bear, even in the formal training. So these are the two main themes that I wanted to put before you as you get started on this exciting conference. And let me thank you again for the opportunity to join. I don't know whether there are any questions or time, David, or if I've run on far too long, but let me thank you for the chance to be with you.
No, never too long, Professor. Thank you. Quite the opposite. I do have a couple of questions that we prepared. The first one, when we look at moving forward the SDG agenda, here at IOHE, we're a university association with 350 members across 28 countries, all in the Americas. We managed to raise funding to launch research grants. So we collected 100K with a group of Canadian institutions to support SDG initiatives from our members, looking specifically at the intersectionality you were referring to. And just recently, as we were discussing with a group of top-level researchers from Canada on the different kind of angle we wanted to give to the call for proposals, quite interestingly, these researchers said, and I want to focus these questions on the Americas and Latin America, Caribbean region in particular. The Canadian researchers were saying, in fact, we have more to learn from Latin America than what we have done here, if you look at the last 10 or 15 years. And probably because the Millennium Development Goals in the previous round were kind of still a north-south kind of approach, where we didn't necessarily feel concerned here in Canada or the US or Western society in general, while other countries were already active in that. And also when you look at university and what we call extension or community engagement in Latin American institutions, we really feel that there's a lot to be learned. So that kind of really shift to this breaking down the north-south and just thinking about this global community of knowledge. What's your take as an observer, as a specialist, looking specifically at Latin America as a region, on what they have achieved and what actually can be learned from this region?
Yeah, thanks a lot. This has actually been a tough time for the region because not only did COVID hit very hard, but it's been a strangely difficult and destabilizing time politically in almost all of the Americas, including in my crazy country, the United States, where we had the craziest president of American history. And unfortunately, he's not gone yet, exactly, Mr. Trump. But there's a lot of disarray, confusion, unhappiness in the Americas. So we should all be trying to sort this out. And you're right, it's not north-south, it's, my God, what's going on here for all of us. So what I find is that our colleagues really want to participate, and we can do very interesting things. So in the US context, we did a project which I found very gratifying earlier this year on how the US can make the transition to net zero by 2050, which we called the Zero Carbon Action Plan. And there were probably 30 academics around the United States that devoted their time for free working on this, turned into a several hundred-page document that I think is very useful and very valuable. Similarly, we launched a project, the SDSN supported a project called the Science Panel for the Amazon, where the theme is the Amazon needs sustainable development, and Bolsonaro is unfortunately busy burning it down or looking the other way as it's burned down. What should be done? And the idea was that the scientists from the Amazon basin are the world's experts on the Amazon, and they should get together. Well, just amazing. 200 Amazon basin scientists the world's best spent a year and put together the most comprehensive scientific assessment of the Amazon that exists. And it was basically done. We were able to get some funding for some basic staffing and so forth. But again, people were so generous with their time. And that massive report is now entering into the political sphere. President Duque of Colombia has initiated the Leticia Group, which is the Amazon basin countries at the political level. I spoke with President Duque a couple of weeks ago and contributed to his meeting of the group last week online. And we're going to bring the scientific report and the political leadership together in the coming months. Another example, the Caribbean Basin as a group is facing increased hurricane and rising sea level threats from climate change. What should be done in CARICOM and in Central America in regard to the climate adaptation agenda? Again, University of West Indies, other universities in the Caribbean, political leaders getting together at a regional scale for analysis. I should mention a couple of years ago, I worked with the Canadian government and actually with Hydro-Quebec to look at the issues of connecting Canadian hydropower with the US Northeast. And I was delighted that a couple of weeks ago, New York City announced an agreement to bring in a lot of hydropower from northern Quebec, which I think is environmentally friendly, zero carbon, way up near the Hudson Bay. So it's absolutely environmentally sound in my view. And it's a long distance, high voltage, direct current line down the East Coast, which is what we need. But again, academic research helped to build what turned into an important public investment. So my view is that everything we're talking about is about solving real problems, working on actual hard challenges, getting rarely answering a grant proposal, unfortunately, because they're not written for the real problems necessarily, but getting academia together to say, this is what's really needed, and then going back to funders, to donor governments or to foundations and say, look, this research is really important. You should support this so that we can do our work properly. And there are a lot of foundations that are ready to step up and support that kind of work now.
Thanks for that, and I appreciate the reference to what we do here. We're actually proud to provide the fight for New York during the cold winter. So, and with the green energy, which is kind of in contra with other movements pushing for other type of energy. So it's a good reference, definitely. Maybe just a last remark, Jeffrey, as we will wrap up now in respect for your time. We have a lot of institutional leaders. You mentioned the work of the SDSN, of course, and we know the guidelines are there. But when we look at leaders and university presidents or VP research, we have a lot of director international here connected from all the different universities. And you mentioned the technical help that universities can provide, because we know at the end of the day, although civil society is getting organized and the university system add their voice, the formal reporting channel of the SDG progress has to go through the formal government channels. And you've been publicly critical of this impasse. What would be your recommendation to all the college and university colleagues here present to maximize their direct impact? You did refer to high-level policy and advocacy. You did also mention grassroots level impact with students, but for university administrators and leaders, where can they have a direct impact on this agenda?
Well, first, this is a good discussion for us to have over weeks and months. So I just want to invite an ongoing discussion about the practicalities. And I will be back to you, David, with ideas about that. We also have, as I say, some documentation that can be helpful. But I do think a university leader should think about the different categories. the research, the educational curriculum, and the policy convening and leadership as distinctive but interconnected parts of the university offer. Then, depending on the university, there should be engagement with often the local city or the district or the national government, and outreach at the right level. And at Columbia University, we work a lot with New York City, but also, of course, we help to organize things for the state government or for the federal government. And I believe that every city needs help of a local university, each province, each national government. And so we should think about that kind of connectivity as well. My general view is get out there and lead. We don't have time for always asking for permission. We need ideas. We need breakthroughs of political systems that are often encrusted or corrupted or not able to get their hands around these big problems, or that want help. So when it came, for example, to measuring the SDGs, there's an official process, but I said that's going too slowly. So we decided to put out a sustainable development report each year where we measure progress. And it became a benchmark for a lot of the global community as the go-to place for the SDG index. And I'm constantly asking my colleagues, what more can we do? Policy benchmarking, policy pathways, budget analysis, and so forth, because I want us to keep adding to the solutions and thinking about innovative ways to add to the solutions. Governments generally then come around and say, okay, yeah, we can see you could be helpful, but it's not necessarily their first instinct.
All right. Well, thank you so much for these inspiring observations, Dr. Sachs. It's been a great treat for us to welcome you as our inaugural keynote speaker. I'll give one clap, but please know that there's 1,000 people behind clapping in their office or homes. So thank you again for your generous time. We look forward to continuing the dialogue, and good evening down there.
Thanks so much. And we will continue all of these discussions. And thanks to Kai for all the great work.
Most definitely. Thank you, sir. All right. So just to complete the opening of Kai, again, I want just to take 1 minute to respond to all the greetings that were said. We can see people from all over the continent. Podemos transicionar al español también. Hemos visto a tantos saludos en el chat. Estamos muy contentos de poder abrir finalmente este gran evento. En pequeños anuncios, ahora tendremos una pequeña pausa. El ritmo de la conferencia pues será un poco distinto que los eventos virtuales, obviamente. So, ahora tienen un espacio. Les invitamos a visitar la CAI Expo, los kioscos de nuestros distintos patrocinadores y colaboradores, familiarizarse con la plataforma, establecer contacto con sus colegas. Y resumiremos a las 4:30 hora de Chile, 3:30, con un panel sobre Education SDGs, con Joseph Vilata, del Guni Network, Brigitte Baptiste, rectora de EAN, y el rector de Dr. Ebel de la Universidad Frontera de Chile. I'm sorry, it's 3 p.m. hora de Santiago, 4 p.m. in New York and Montreal. Y para concluir, queremos terminar esta inauguración con un mensaje de bienvenida de nuestro anfitrión, el ministro de Educación de Chile, lo que concluirá esta inauguración. Así que les invitamos a seguirnos en las demás actividades previstas en el programa. Gracias y estaremos en contacto toda la
Para nosotros es una gran satisfacción recibir al Congreso de las Américas sobre Educación Internacional. Y les damos la más gran bienvenida a todos quienes participan de esta iniciativa. La posibilidad de compartir experiencias y sacar de ahí las mejores prácticas que pongan la educación superior al servicio de los estudiantes es real en este Congreso, y esperamos que de la posibilidad de compartir entre todos podamos efectivamente sacar grandes conclusiones con ese objetivo. Chile tiene un sistema de educación superior diverso, tanto en las características de sus instituciones de educación superior como en los distintos focos y proyectos educativos que ahí se representan. Es ciertamente una virtud de nuestro sistema, que tratamos siempre de potenciar y que ponemos a disposición de los demás países para que desde ahí puedan también sacarse iniciativas que permitan el desarrollo de las instituciones más allá de nuestras fronteras. Creemos que es importante aprovechar esta oportunidad para reflexionar sobre las virtudes, los desafíos y las posibilidades de los distintos sistemas de educación superior que aquí están representados. Y también aprovechar de compartir la manera en que los distintos países han sabido enfrentar la pandemia del COVID-19. Ciertamente ha significado un desafío enorme que nos ha permitido también desarrollar con velocidad respuestas, siempre pensando en el bienestar de los estudiantes, y que nos permitirá también, ya pensando en el mediano y futuro plazo, desarrollar políticas que pongan a disposición de los distintos países todo lo aprendido y poder así catapultar nuestros sistemas de educación superior hacia los desafíos que nos presenta el futuro. Espero que este Congreso sea una oportunidad concreta para compartir experiencias, reflexionar sobre ellas y sacar de ahí las mejores conclusiones que nos permitan, en un espacio de libertad, de conversación y de permanente desarrollo, sacar adelante las mejores iniciativas con miras a el mejor desarrollo del sistema de educación superior, tanto en Chile como a nivel internacional.